Part of my thought process with this store is strategic. Getting all the stuff that I got, let me put it right up here in this video, strategery. I want to try to do my best to ensure the longer term health of the store, and getting a big chunk of inventory that can be used over the process of a long period of time was a part of that. Some of it, though, is just pivoting quickly and making decisions to change gears when new ideas come up. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned that I was going to be bringing stuff into the store that would typically go to like eBay or something, and try to price those things fairly. Didn't get a ton of feedback verbally, but stuff sold pretty well. So I'm going to keep doing that. Probably in the future, once the online side of things gets going back up in full gear, I will figure out a better relationship between those two sides. But for right now, if it seems like this thing would have a remote chance in hell to sell in the shop, I'll probably bring it into the shop and see what happens there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, essentially I'm just figuring this out as I go about what the price point or the dollar threshold for items can be in the store, where it still feels like people are getting a good value for items despite those prices being high. Like a $40 item that typically sells for $50, that's a good price. But when you put a $40 item compared to a $3 DVD next to it, like, it seems really high. So I'm trying to figure out that balance and what is appropriate for the store and what's not. I'm very new to all of this still, and it will figure itself out in time. But I do just want to speak to that process because it was something that I kind of just left out there. Where this also becomes a bit of an issue is when I'm talking about providing that value in the store. I don't do this to point fingers. However, there are other shops around town that charge a lot more for the same things that I'm charging for. And they don't clean the items, they don't resurface discs, things of that nature. So I feel like there's more value added along the way, in addition to the price being better. Now, that being said, a way to keep the price low is to buy low. And there was another point that came up last night. There was a gentleman that came in who wanted to sell some stuff. And I asked him up front, like, hey, what are you looking for these specific items? Like, what is your expectation here? I want to know so that I don't offend you. And his prices on some things are close to, if not more than, what I was going to be charging in the store. So the realistic side of that is I'm going to give very low compared to what you might be expecting, in part because I'm going to be charging much lower than you would get, across the street or elsewhere online. That being said, I do try to pay fair. So at least like 25% of what I'd be selling for, I'll give that to you in cash. The reason for that is I have to have money left over. My occupancy charge, so at all of the money that goes into paying, whether it's rent, utilities, all that overhead. Once you take that into consideration, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be able to put out there like, hey, I will pay you, 2/3 of what the item will sell for. That doesn't work for this situation. Particularly because a lot of it comes in and it might sit around a while. So there's that. It might not sell. So I might have to figure out a way to either liquidate it or, just sell it at a reduced price just to keep it moving. So there's that side of things. But one of the things that came up, a couple guys have come in recently and mentioned like video games, etc. across the street and said, when I go in there, there is a big stack of Blu-rays behind the counter. Maybe you should go talk to them, seeing what you can do to get your hands on that excess inventory. I might pop over there, but one of the things that is sort of the underlying thought behind that is, how do I get more of a word out that I'm buying? And can I pay fair? That's the other thing. Like, I really want to maintain a fair price, if not a less than market rate price, I'll say. To this point, I have been very cautious and very, conservative about putting word out that I am buying. And that is also in part because I want to be very specific about what I am buying from just folks in the community. There's been a few key people who just have been so gracious with, selling or trading in parts of their collections and things like that. I won't name them because I don't know if they want to be named, but when you're seeing a lot of the really cool stuff come out, that is due to probably just a small handful of people. And I would love to move away from that with time, where I'm not as reliant on just a couple folks who want to see this thing work, and expand the reach a little bit so that I too can have that excess inventory that is apparently sitting across the street. It's sort of just a conundrum that I'm falling into, because I want to be a few different types of things to a few different types of people who have interest in the store. Like, I want there to be that sort of budget-friendly element. I also want it to be a boutique store. I also want there to be a crossover between the two, so you don't feel like you're getting overcharged on the boutique side but undercharged on the value side. You know what I mean? It's a lot of moving parts there, and I'm just trying to be equitable and fair across the board. And I guess that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this video, where I'm like, part of this is strategic, part of it's figuring out as I go. This is a part I'm definitely figuring out as I go. You know, when the store opened, Blu-rays weren't even separated. They were just mixed into the DVDs because I didn't have many. And now there's a little bit more, but on a week-to-week basis, the number doesn't go up. And I guess I'm just looking at the future of, you know, what are people interested in the physical shop and what I have, and thinking like, how do I get more of the other stuff that I don't have? So I'm just kind of putting that out to the universe. Hey, I need more of the stuff I don't have. How do I get it? Or maybe is it even possible because I'm trying to charge too little, so I can't pay enough? I do believe that I pay more than half-price books. That brings up another thing where I'm like, part of the reason that I suspect that they pay the rates that they do for the items that they buy is because they buy everything, whereas I'm just trying to be more on the selective side of what I'm bringing into the shop, because I already have so much of, you know, the bread and butter DVDs and CDs and stuff. So is the better route to go and say, hey, I'm going to pay you hardly anything, but I will take everything, as opposed to saying, I will try to pay you fairly, but I will only take some of it? I don't really know. I'm trying to figure that out. On the other side, what I'm also figuring out is like the cycle of stuff in the shop. A little while ago, before the big shipment came in, I was feeling things out with discounting stuff that's on the shelves, like DVDs, or moving them over to the clearance bin that I had set up, because I just want to have like a little bit more of a reasonable life cycle to the churn of inventory there. And one of the things that I want to continue with is making sure that what is on the shelves is what people are interested in. So I don't know, it was a week or two ago, I put up a little poll on YouTube and on Instagram, just asking like, hey, generally speaking, what would you like to see more of, at least on the DVD side? Here is what people said. On Instagram, folks were more interested in like having a broader range of comedy, sci-fi, and then, you know, the yada yada. It's not drama. It's thrillers, romance. It's everything. I probably have to put a better title on that. It's the catch-all for stuff that isn't immediately evident of where I should put it, which is also a whole other discussion for another day. Like, half of what I put in sci-fi could be action, or half of, you know, it's there's a lot of gray area between these things. And over on YouTube, folks were saying pretty much the same thing. Want more sci-fi, want more comedy, more of the yada yada as well. And part of where my mind was when I was asking that is because I had already gotten rid of, you know, like fitness DVDs. Not really a big seller in the store. And I also pared down things like the foreign film section. Next up, what I think I'm going to do is do the exact same thing to the documentaries. I was very curious to see if there was a larger appetite for more obscure documentaries in the shop. And to this point, there really just hasn't been. That's not to say that they don't have value or a place in a store like this, but there's limited real estate given the amount of shelf space that I do have. And in blunt terms, I want to sell more of what is selling, not just because money, right? But also because I want to make sure that there's stuff in the store that people are actually interested in. So I don't really know how to balance out the shelves to equate to what was represented on those surveys. Like, for instance, I put out as many horror movies as I can find, and I can't manifest anymore into being when they do not exist for me. So that's another thing, just kind of like the Blu-rays. I try to be fair on the pricing, and perhaps I'm selling them for too low, but that's a value that I have. I want it to be a non-decision when you come across something in the store that you like, where you're like, that is a price that I don't have to worry about, like, ooh, can I afford this or that? I know that I'm going to be able to afford it. But what I'm probably going to do is eliminate some of the documentary side and sports and things like that, and just expand upon the yada yada section, at least for now. So the drama yada yada, the romance, the thriller, the blah blah blah, all that stuff. Because I think that there's more room in that area that people would find interesting, and there's certainly more stuff that I have available to put out that would probably eliminate the relatively dead space occupied by the documentary section. The other side of it, because now I have kind of said to myself, well, what I'll do is I'll cycle that stuff out and put it into the clearance bin. With all of the stuff, again, in this video right here, with all of the stuff that is back there, I've opened, a very, very small amount, but I've already come across stuff that I wasn't anticipating. I'll leave that as a question mark. What is this stuff that you haven't anticipated? Well, it's stuff that isn't really meant for the value bins up front, and stuff that really isn't meant for the shelves, like the main catalog, the stuff that, the everyday searchable stuff. So that might end up going in the clearance bin as a non-clearance item. I don't really know, but there's some really cool stuff I'm coming across that I think can be utilized in the store in a way that I wasn't previously anticipating. And part of that really just comes down to capacity. Like, how much time do I have on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis to figure out all these little projects and experiment with things and stuff like that? So to this point, I have not said, hey, yeah, I'm hiring or anything like that, because I'm not. I'm not, generally speaking. Amid all of the other stuff that I'm like, damn, this was much more complex than I was anticipating when I opened the shop. Payroll and payroll taxes and all that stuff. Getting that set up and implementing that is neither particularly straightforward, nor is it cheap. So I have been very cautious to this point about saying, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's work some part-time hours or things like that, because I also want to do things the right way, where I'm kind of by the book. But you will start seeing at least one new face in the shop. I will not make the decision for them on how that is kind of brought up and shared online, but that will be a thing. And part of the reason for that is not just because I know I can't do everything by myself, which I know I can't forever. That would be impossible. But also, I want to make sure that there is more bandwidth to get the day-to-day stuff done. It's usually about 700 to 1,000 items out every single week. That's a lot of stuff, which means a lot of processing, a lot of cleaning, a lot of resurfacing, a lot of recasing items, just all of that. So that will be a thing coming up, and I'm sure I'm forgetting something. But if you've heard something along the way that you want to ask more about, or this has inspired a certain idea that you want to bounce off me, hey, the store can be better this way, what do you think about this? Drop me a comment, or swing by the store and ask me in person. I would love to create sort of a dialogue just about how things are shifting and changing with the store, and I really want to encourage that. So if there is anything that I have said that does not make sense or you'd like to hear more about, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably see you in the store. Thanks for watching.